What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the entrants for the 2025 Coca-Cola 600. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain has shown some solid speed in recent weeks with the Trackhouse Racing equipment and came off of having a top 5 finish most recently in the All-Star race. He's been really solid at Charlotte in the past, almost won the race in 2022, and has been pretty good at Charlotte historically. He looks to run really well this weekend and pick up his first Cup win of 2025 this weekend with the Trackhouse Racing team. We'll see if he can have the pace and speed to be a contender in the Coca-Cola 600 with Trackhouse. Up next up, the 2-car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric's had some solid speed on the mile and a half so far in 2025, and generally has had his best season so far in his NASCAR Cup Series career. He's looking for a second win in 2025, trying to get the second win for Penske in the last 2 years, as of course Ryan Blaney won the Coke 600 in 2023. Cindric, I do expect to have some pretty solid speed. I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity for a good run in this year's Coca-Cola 600. Up next up, the 3-car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's coming off and making the All-Star event after winning last year and having an okay performance but not a great performance in the All-Star race. Now, Austin Dillon is a former Coca-Cola 600 winner as he won it back in 2017. It was also announced earlier today that Austin Dillon will be doing double duty as he'll run the Xfinity Series race for RCR in the number 3 car as well. I do expect Dillon to show some decent speed as the RCR cars have had a little more speed this year than they did in 2024. Up next up with the 4-car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. After getting in with the fan vote to the All-Star race, Noah Gragson did have a solid top 15 run. And Noah Gragson at times this year has shown some decent speed, but generally he's been in the middle to the back of pack throughout the season. I do think Noah might have a good run. He's been solid at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the past in NASCAR competition. I think Front Row showed some decent speed at this track as well. I do think Noah will be a factor for a good run at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 5-car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is going to have a very busy week as Kyle Larson will be attempting to complete 1,100 miles as he'll be attempting to complete all 500 laps in Indy 500 and also all 600 laps in the 600 miles in the Coca-Cola 600. Larson's one of the favorites to win the Coke 600. He hasn't had the speed at Indianapolis, but I do think Larson will be a factor for sure to win the 2025 Coca-Cola 600, which would be the second time he would ever accomplish that. Up next, how about the 6-car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Now, Brad Keselowski is a former winner of the Coca-Cola 600 back in 2020. And he might need that magic considering this has been the worst season Brad Keselowski has had in his NASCAR Cup Series career. In recent weeks, he's shown some decent speed, but he hasn't had to finish as a backup in show for it. He'll be looking for redemption this weekend, looking to try to get that first Cup win since Darlington last year. Just looking for his first top 10 at this point. He looks to run really solid and hope he can have a much better run than he's had throughout the whole entire year so far. Up next up with the 7-car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Now, Justin Haley's had some okay runs in the Coca-Cola 600 in the past, and I think the 7-car has shown some decent speed so far throughout 2025. I do think Justin Haley will be a solid factor maybe for a top 20. I don't think he's going to be a major contender for the win. I think the Spire cars have been showing a lot more speed, but I don't think Haley will be a major factor. We'll see how he can do this weekend at Charlotte for the Coke 600. Up next up at the 8-car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Now, Kyle Busch is also a former winner of the Coca-Cola 600 back in 2018. And I feel like this A team has shown a lot more speed this year than they did in 2024. And I do think Kyle Busch, with the speed he's shown in recent years, I think he will be somewhat of a factor for a top 10. He's been solid in the mile and a half. I think the mile and a half program for RCR has been good. Kyle Busch looks to run really well and sap the winless streak and win with the first race on Amazon Prime. Up next up with the 9-car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is coming off of having a top 5 finish this past weekend in the All-Star race, and Chase Elliott, in my opinion, in recent weeks has shown some decent speed as he ran really well at Kansas and had one of the fastest cars on the long run. I do think Chase Elliott, with his recent experience at Charlotte, I think he's going to be a big factor. He almost won the race in 2020. I think Chase will have a good chance and opportunity for a really strong run in this year's Coca-Cola 600. Up next, how about the 10-car for Kaulig Racing? This will once again be driven by Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon, unfortunately, got into some beef with Zane Smith at the All-Star event, but Ty Dillon also has had some decent speed at some races so far this year, but is still looking for his first top 10 finish of the season. But I gotta say, he's been a lot better in that car this year than I really expected. I look for Dillon to do decent, but I don't think he'll be a major factor this weekend at Charlotte for the Coke 600. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin, of course, won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2022 and almost won the race, I believe, last year as well. Denny Hamlin did not have a good run in the All-Star race, but Hamlin's mile-and-a-half speed generally this year has been very good. He's looking for a second Coca-Cola 600 victory this year. He's had quite a bit of success at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the past. I think that success could lead to Denny Hamlin having a really strong run and maybe getting win number 2, win 3, I should say, of 2025. Up next, how about the 12 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Ryan Blaney. Now, Ryan Blaney is looking for his second Coca-Cola 600 victory, as he did win the race back in 2023. Last year, he had a tire issue while being a massive factor for the win. Ryan Blaney, I think, will be somewhat of a factor. His speed on the long runs, especially, has been better than most drivers in the field this year, which I think will lead to Ryan Blaney being good. I do expect a lot of long green flag runs throughout the Coca-Cola 600, and that long run speed is going to come into play. I think that will definitely help Ryan Blaney this year in the Coke 600. Up next, how about the 16 car for Colleague Racing? This will once again be driven by AJ Allmendinger. Now, AJ Allmendinger has not had the speed in recent weeks, and he's also had some attrition come into play in recent weeks as well, where he had a little bit of displeasure with RCR and ECR. He's looking for a turnaround run. He's had decent success in the Xfinity Series at this track, but he's never really had success in the Cup Series at this track. But I think Allmendinger could turn that around. He looks to run really solid. We'll see what he can do, and we'll see if he can show the speed at Charlotte. Up next, up the 17 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Chris Buescher. Now, it was announced earlier today that after they got hit by penalties after Kansas, that the 17 team is going to appeal the penalty. Chris Buescher, though, I gotta say, has been the best RFK car times throughout the year, and I think he's shown some good speed so far this season, and his mile-and-a-half speed has been pretty good. That could lead to a lot of success. He had a fast car here 3 years ago. I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity for a really strong run in this year's Coke 600. Up next, up the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Chase Briscoe. Now, Chase Briscoe came very close to winning the Coke 600 in 2022, but spun out while battling Kyle Larson for the win. Briscoe, though, is driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. JGR has been really good at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the past, and I think expectations are going to be high for this number 19 team, as he is still looking for his first win with this program. I think he'll have the speed, and I think he'll show some really solid pace this weekend at the Coca-Cola 600 with JGR. Up next, up with the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell comes in as a defending winner of the Coca-Cola 600, and he has a lot of momentum going into this week, considering he did win the All-Star race a couple days ago. Christopher Bell has been one of the fastest cars throughout 2025, and his long-run speed, like I mentioned with Blaney, has been very, very good as well. I expect Bell to be a major factor, and he could have a chance and opportunity to go back-to-back. I think he'll be looking, I believe, to be the first driver to do that since Jimmy Johnson went 3 in a row from 2003 to 2005. I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to do that this year. Up next, up the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This will once again be driven by Josh Berry. Now, Josh Berry's had a lot of speed so far throughout 2025, but hasn't had all the finishes to show for it. But I think the long-run speed has been also good for the number 21 team. So I expect Berry to be a solid factor. The Wood Brothers have not won the Coke 600 since, I believe, when Kyle Petty drove for this program in 1986. So he looked to get it done. We'll see what Josh Berry can do as he looks to get his second win of 2025. Up next, up with the 22 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Joey Logano. Now, Joey Logano has been having a lot of speed in recent weeks and got a solid top 10 finish at Kansas. And he almost won the All-Star race not too long ago as well. He's looking for a second win in 2025, as of course he won at the second most recent mile-and-a-half at Texas. He looks for a really good run this weekend, and Joey Logano looks to win his first ever Coca-Cola 600 in 2025. Up next, up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. After a really strong start to the year, the last couple weeks for Bubba Wallace have not been that great, unfortunately. He struggled a little bit at Kansas, had an issue, of course, and then, of course, he did not make the All-Star race. But we're going to the Coke 600, and Bubba Wallace historically has been fantastic in the Coke 600 in recent years. He's led laps in a majority of the most recent races. I think this could help Bubba Wallace in a really big way. I do expect him to be somewhat of a contender for a potential top 5 or maybe an outside chance at the win at this year's Coca-Cola 600. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by William Byron. William Byron almost won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2024 as he was one of the fastest cars in the event. William Byron is still looking for his first win since the Daytona 500 early this season, but he has shown some really good speed at times as he currently sits second in the regular season standings. He looks for a really strong run, and he looks to pick up that second win of the year. We'll see what he can do in this year's Coca-Cola 600. Up next, up with the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This is once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen has overall not had the most speed on the racetrack, but he's been one of the more consistent drivers in the field at times. Todd also has had some decent runs in the Coca-Cola 600 as well, so I do think Gillen could be in for a really strong performance. I think he might have a chance for top 15 or top 20. We'll see what he can do at this year's Coca-Cola 600 with Front Row. Up next, up with the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Riley Herbst. Now, Riley Herbst has had no speed so far in 2025 and only has one top 15 finish through the first 12 races of the year. I just don't trust the speed from the 35 car. He's way behind his teammates. He got outperformed by Corey Heim for the most part at Kansas, and I think there's questions about the long-term future for this driver. He looks for a solid run. We'll see if he can do much, but I don't expect much from him this weekend at the Coke 600. Up next, up with the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Now, Zane Smith actually got a top 10 finish in the Coke 600 in 2023. And I think Zane Smith could be in for a solid run, as I think this 38 car has shown some pretty good speed at times throughout 2025. I don't think he's going to be a major factor for the win by any stretch of imagination, but I think the speed will be there, and I think we'll have a good chance and opportunity for a top 15 run in this year's Coke 600. Up next, up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This will once again be driven by Cole Custer. Cole Custer has really not showed a lot of speed, but there was 1 year he ran really good in this event, and that was 2022, where I believe he finished inside of the top 10. I don't think he's going to have that speed this time around. It just seems like the Haas factory team is way behind a lot of teams currently at the moment. He looks for a good run, but once again, I don't expect much from Cole Custer this weekend at Charlotte for the Coke 600. Up next, up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Hunter Nemechek in recent weeks has been showing a lot of speed, and honestly, he's been really impressive. He got his way into the All-Star race. He's had some top 10 finishes in recent weeks as well, and is having a career year in the NASCAR Cup Series up to this point, as he's got an outside chance to make the playoffs. I don't know if he's going to continue sustaining that speed, but I do think he'll be someone to watch out for a top 15 run at Charlotte. Up next, up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Now, Eric Jones has been solid in the Coca-Cola 600 in the past, but he has never won the Coke 600 before. And realistically, even though the Legacy cars have shown more speed, I don't see Eric Jones being a major factor for the win. But like I mentioned with John Hunter, I think a top 10 or top 15 is certainly possible. So we'll see what he can do, and we'll see if Eric Jones can be a factor for a good run at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Up next, up with the 44 car for NY Racing. Well, no driver has been formally announced at this time. My prediction is going to be J.J. Yeley. J.J. Yeley has ran with the team for the last couple of years, and J.J. is overall a solid driver. Yes, he had the incident with Mark Martin in 2006, but I got to say he's still improved as a driver. I think he's done a good job. I think more than likely for the Coke 600 is going to be J.J. Yeley. That's my prediction currently at the moment for the NY Racing team. Up next, up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick's been interesting this year. He's had speed on the shorter ovals, but on the mile and half this year, he just hasn't had the overall best speed that I thought he was going to have. But I do think Reddick could come here for a good run. I think the 2311 cars are going to have a bounce back run on these types of tracks. I think Bubba at times has been quicker than him this year, but I think if anyone can really get the season going for the program, it is certainly Tyler Reddick. We'll see what he can do at Charlotte. Up next, up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has honestly been putting up some really strong numbers this year for his standards. He's currently got a playoff spot at the moment right now, and I think that this 47 team has been under the radar most of the year because he's just been quietly putting together some good performances. I think he has a no DNS so far this year, which could lead to Stenhouse running well. He's been fast in the Coke 600 in the past. We'll see what he can do at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Up next, up with the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. The last couple weeks for Alex Bowman have looked really good. He got a top 5 at Kansas and got a top 5 finish in the All-Star race. And I expect Alex Bowman to be a pretty big factor for the win this time around. The speed on the mile has for the 48 team has been one of the fastest teams on these types of tracks. I think it's going to lead to a lot of success and a lot of luck, and I think Alex Bowman will get a pretty strong run in the 2025 Coca-Cola 600 with Hendrick. Up next, up with the 51 car for Ware Racing. This will once again be driven by Cody Ware. After being 1 week in the number 15 car since Harrison Burton was driving the 51 car, of course, Harrison took over that car from A. Haley Deegan this year. He's back in the 51 car for the remainder of the season. Cody Ware is going to be one of the slowest cars on the track. The Rick Ware cars just don't have the speed currently at the moment right now. They're way behind the 8 ball. I think it's going to be a struggle. We'll see if he can run well, but I don't expect much from Cody Ware in this year's Coca-Cola 600 with this team. Up next, up at the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs has had a rough overall season in 2025. After a couple bright spots in the middle of the regular season, the last couple weeks have not been as strong for Ty. Luckily, we're going to a track where Ty Gibbs has been very, very good in the past. He almost won the race last year, had one of the strongest cars in the field. I think that definitely could lead to a lot of success for Ty. I think he could have a strong performance. We'll see if Ty Gibbs can be quick, and we'll see if he can be very, very fast in the 2025 Coke 600. We'll see if the speed can be there for Ty Gibbs this time around. Up next, up at the 60 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Now, Ryan Preece, unfortunately, did not make the main All-Star event after getting penalized in the race. But outside of that, Ryan Preece this year has shown some really solid speed, has been pretty good throughout 2025, and has been doing a really good job with the RFK equipment. He looks for a really strong run this week and looks for his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. The RFK cars have been solid in the Coke 600 in the past. We'll see if he has a chance to get that first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Charlotte. Up next, I have the 66 car for the Garage 66. This will be driven by Josh Blakey, who I believe will make his first or second NASCAR Cup Series start of 2025. This team has had Casey Mears behind the wheel. They've had Chandler Smith behind the wheel. And we thought Mike Wallace was going to be driving, but of course that did not happen. Josh is a solid driver overall, but the equipment isn't that great, so I don't expect much from this car. We'll see if Blakey can be a factor, but I don't expect much from him this weekend at Charlotte for the Coke 600. Up next, I have the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Now, Michael McDowell this year has shown some pretty good speed with Spire Motorsports, and I think he could be an outside factor for at least a top 10. And if strategy comes into play, you never know, he could be a factor for the victory. He's never won outside the Daytona 500. He hasn't won any other major crown jewel races. He's looking for a really good run and looks to win his first ever Coca-Cola 600, which I think he's got a good chance to do that this weekend. Up next, I have the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Now, Carson Hocevar has been having some really good runs as of late. He had a pretty good run at Kansas, if I remember correctly, and also did very good in the Open and got into the All-Star race where he nearly finished inside the top 10. He'll be looking to run really well. He's been good at Charlotte in the past. He almost won here, I think, a couple years ago. He looks for a really strong performance, and I think he will be a factor for a top 10 this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway with Spire. Up next, I have the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Jimmy Johnson. Now, Jimmy Johnson is making his 700th career NASCAR Cup Series start, which not a lot of drivers have ever accomplished at this point. The last time Jimmy raced, he got a top 5 finish in the Daytona 500. And while I don't expect Jimmy Johnson to be strong, he did get a top 30 in the Coke 600 last year. I could realistically see him getting another top 30. It seems like the Legacy cars have shown more speed this year. We'll see if Jimmy can be fast and strong in this year's Coke 600, which could be his final NASCAR Cup Series race for now. Up next up, this 87 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will be driven by Connor Zilch, who makes his oval NASCAR Cup Series debut at the Coca-Cola 600, where he'll run his own double, as of course he's currently full-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Junior Motorsports, and also has got the Red Bull sponsorship as well. Connor Zilch, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people in a good way. I don't think he's going to be a major contender for the win, but I think a top 20 is certainly possible in his debut. I think the Trackhouse cars will show more speed. They've been good at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the past. I think Connor's a really good talent and great driver. I look for him to be really good in his oval debut this weekend at Charlotte in the Coca-Cola 600. Up next, I have the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, this is going to be Shane Van Gisbergen's second Coca-Cola 600. So if I remember correctly, kind of finished around 30th position in the first Coke 600 with Colleague Racing. I think the experience will actually help him this time around, and I think this could be a week where things kind of headed the right direction for him. I do think SVG will have a shot for top 20 to top 25. I think there's going to be some attrition that's really going to help him. I look for Shane to show some good speed as he looks to turn the season around after what's been not the best season for Shane Van Gisbergen in the NASCAR Cup Series up to this point. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Now, Daniel Suarez has had decent speed at points this year, but hasn't had all the results to show for it. And he hasn't been that great at times as well in the past. Daniel Suarez almost won the Coke 600 3 years ago, so he could be looking to use that to help him get a chance and opportunity to try to run really well. We'll see if he can show some good speed, and we'll see if Daniel Suarez can be a factor for a top 10 potentially, or maybe even the top 15 in the 2025 Coca-Cola 600. So, that is going to be for the interest video for the 2025 Coca-Cola 600. One thing, guys, for watching, please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Who's your early pick to win the Coke 600? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, we got a lot of good people in the booth. We got Corey LaJoy, Carl Edwards, we've got Dale Jr., Steve Latar, Adam Alexander. We've also got Daniel Trott and a couple other great people working down there as well. We are going to have the 8500 race picks dropping as well on the channel, so looking forward to that today. And then tomorrow we're going to have a NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple of days. We'll talk about Conor Zolci's return to NASCAR. We'll talk about some other potential news coming, like RFK's appeal that's happening in the future. We got content coming out, people like Haley Deegan, Shaman Gisborne, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain. We got the Hall of Fame thing going on. We'll see if Kurt Busch, Gray, before any of those guys can get in. Who knows at this point? We got a lot of great content dropping this week with it being Memorial Day weekend. Looking forward to releasing all that content. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other stuff on the channel like this. Take care, everybody. We got Claudius and Farland, Sheldon Creed, Dodge content coming very soon on the channel as well.